Hello, my name is Paul Hose.
Daniel Dodson.
And we're here today to talk about my new album called Anthology Volume I.
Paul enlisted me about a year and a half ago as his producer and mixing and mastering engineer, and ultimately ended up playing guitar on 4 of the tracks as well.
And writing one of them.
And writing one of the tracks.
Which we'll get onto later, yeah. So just to give some background, I am a drummer. I suppose I'm a bit of a composer now as well.
Yeah.
Dan and I work together at MLC in Nottingham, and what had happened to me was, so I'd been playing the drums since 1985, been professional since 92, and then completely ran out of steam with it all during the pandemic, and frankly needed a reason to play the drums again, or to, like, I was totally passionate about music from an audience member's perspective, but in terms of
you've lost your spark as a player.
Yeah, I was nowhere with it. So I'd spoken with people about it in 2022, promptly did nothing about it, got really frustrated with myself about it, and perchance just started to talk to you about it at the beginning of 2023.
That's right. Early days, we were really talking about your equipment and your ambition going forwards, what you wanted to do with the equipment. And it was very basic stuff initially. It was connectivity, how to get your triggers to talk to a DAW.
Yeah, that's right. I'd got no experience in that whatsoever, and I was looking for help, because although for some people it might seem obvious, but there is a lot of assumed knowledge out there, and I was coming at it from, I can play the drums,
Our saying at the time was all the gear, no idea, right?
Well, that's probably still the case. Yeah. But yeah, so we, MLC in Nottingham teaches music production, and I thought, well, actually, I'm going about this all wrong. I need to speak with you, and if nothing else, have some lessons, and that's what got us going, really.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk a bit about your attic setup and the equipment that you had to begin with?
Yeah, so the equipment that I came to you with was a very high-end acoustic kit, drum kit, that I'd recovered in mesh heads, and I'd put Roland triggers all over it, and then that was going in through a thing called a Roland SPDSX, which is a unit that manages all the triggers. So it can either manage it from a MIDI perspective, or it can be used to trigger WAV files that are already in there. But from there, it was MIDI out into a
MIDI interface.
Yeah, and that's where all the good stuff happened and stopped.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah. It was fair to say that you wanted that feel of a live kit, being a real drum kit, but with more control over the sound at the other end.
Yeah, because I wanted whatever it was that we ended up recording, because of course at that time we didn't know what we were going to record.
Absolutely.
It was really important to me to feel like I was playing the drums.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't working in a band, wasn't doing a show, wasn't working on anything musical in that regard. Immersed heavily in music education, but not as a creative. So I wanted to sit down and play the drums.
Yeah. The limiting factor at that point, I think, was the DAW.
The DAW, definitely.
And the machine.
Definitely, 100%.
We ended up with some fairly severe latency issues.
Yeah.
It took us a while to resolve, if you remember.
Well, we couldn't resolve it.
No. And we spent weeks trying to do all sorts to fix a problem that wasn't really solvable with the machine that we had.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And just I'm just going to go kind of off-piste a little bit here. If you're listening to this and you're hearing some ambient stuff in the background, it's because Dan and I are talking to each other at MLC in Nottingham, and there's lessons going on all around us. And in fact, we've got some students involved in producing this as well. But that brings me all the way back round to where we got to. That period of time enabled you and I, if nothing else, to talk to each other a lot about music and the process,
and to get an understanding of each other and what our goals were going forwards.
Yeah, and it was just apparent that we were going to go no further forward until we changed the machine and the door.
And the more I learnt about your goals and your musical ambitions, that's what led me to Ableton.
Yeah,
that seemed to be the door that did it all. And that it had the potential for arrangement for a full song, but also the loop capability, which helped us in the compositional process.
Yeah, and I've got a feeling that we've not even used 5% of Ableton's capabilities. Yeah, which excites me, but it also frightens me as well. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing piece of software.
But even then, when we started with Ableton, we still had latency issues because the machine we were running couldn't quite handle the level to which we were trying to push it.
That's right.
The early stages, I believe it was working quite well when you first transferred some of your tracks that you created in another DAW. It was as things got more ambitious and your tracks began to grow that the CPU hit that limit.
Yeah, and there was no way around it or over it. I had to go away and invest in a new machine, put Ableton on it, and that was the breakthrough.
Yeah, that's really where the journey started, I think.
Yeah, and I think for anyone listening to this, that's important because sadly, even to do it simply, you need quite a large upfront investment in hardware as well as software.
Absolutely. Which we learnt the hard way.
Yeah. We were looking to try and find an easy way in, but for what we were, well, even then, actually, I think it's fair to say we didn't know what we were trying to get out of it.
True. Yeah.
But once we'd sorted out the CPU and the DAW, it opened possibilities to an infinite amount of stuff, actually.
It gave you the space to be creative as well, because instead of fighting with the software and trying to get it to do what you wanted, you were able to just sit down and create music, right?
Yeah. And that's when then I remember I was at the cinema with Lee Wraith, the guitarist, and he said to me, get a little MIDI keyboard, which I did. Mm-hmm. I got an Akai mini play. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's like 2 octaves and a few pads. And then he said to me, use the Opus software from East West.
Yeah.
And in that order, so I went out and got the keyboard, and then we were using the knobs and the triggers to come up with different chord structures. Do you remember we were looking at all the different inversions of chords,
and we were using the dial to change through different inversions and closed voicing, open voicing.
Yeah.
Because early on, the idea was that I was teaching you to produce yourself, and I was teaching you some compositional theory as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed as the journey went on. But that was our starting point.
Yeah, that's right. And I work best when I'm collaborating with others, and so it became apparent really quickly that I was going to go nowhere unless actually I could persuade you to not only get on board with a project, but actually give me some boundaries and deadlines.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and to give you the freedom to just be composer and not worry about mixing and mastering.
Yeah,
because you knew there was someone else who was going to take care of that at the other end.
Yeah, and I think even today, like I've learned a little bit about mixing. I know nothing about mastering. Mm-hmm. I've learned a little bit about mixing, but I'm really happy that I could just say to you, I think this is ready, or I think this is broken, or whatever.
I think that's your strength, is that little seedling, that initial spark of inspiration, your imagination, is very good at finding that, which is something I've always struggled with personally. I'm good at taking a project that's already in motion and running with it and bringing it to a final product.
Yeah.
What I've always struggled with is that initial spark, that seed. So I think in that respect we made a good team, and that made it exciting to move forwards.
And we're lucky in that regard that we worked together and we were able to do that, because we were talking about it pretty much every day at work.
Yeah.
You know, even if it was just like 2 minute conversations.
We were really excited about it. We were texting each other back and forth.
Yeah. And that was good. That was really good for morale. It gave me a reason to go forward with it. So I invested in the East-West library, and we installed that, and then the whole thing just exploded.
That was the game changer for you, I think.
Yeah.
Was the inspiration that you got from access to those sounds, because it sent you into an inspired flow state.
Yeah.
Where the songs were almost composing themselves.
Yeah, and actually using the setup. If we go back to the setup where I triggered the entire drum kit, I was able to play. I was able to sit in my kit and play bass lines or piano lines, you know.
And you had access to so many different drum kit sounds as well. So you could get a gospel kit, you could get a rock kit.
We could get taiko, you know, we could get timpani.
But all with the comfort of sitting at your own drum kit, which I think was important for you.
Yeah, even you know, there's we'll get onto the tracks in particular later, but one of the tracks has got a really strong conga part, and I played that sat at my acoustic kit. So even from that perspective, even before we talk about the tracks, it meant that I approached playing the drums on each track completely differently. So some of the pieces, the kit part is a loop, and we'll talk about that. Some of the performances are entire performances. So there's at least 4 pieces where, in fact 5 probably,
where it's pretty much totally live.
Yeah. But then there's others where it was better for the piece of music if I played in loops and worked with loops.
Yes.
And again, the Ableton software was able to manage that.
Exactly. And comping as well. You know, there's a few tracks where you've taken drum solos. Yeah. We're able to do multiple takes and decide on the best one.
Yeah, and that gave us a different headache, didn't it? Because then you're thinking, I like that bit, or you know. But overall, that was the better performance, or at least that's the one. I think
in the end, we ended up using a full live take for your solo, but the possibility was there for comping if we needed to.
Yeah. So why don't we get into the tracks then?
Sure.
Point? Yeah. So the album is 11 tracks, which was exciting because. That's mind-blowing for me, you know, to think that there are actually 11 tracks that we pulled out of the universe, like it's just in my head or in your head.
And they came together fairly quickly once we had East-West sounds.
Yeah. And the way my approach to this is, and the reason it's called Anthology, is that these are musical stories. So each piece, there is a story. It might be complete fiction. There might be a fictional character or a place or a theme, and then I remember when we got onto your piece, I literally gave you a brief, like that's the story. Please go away and write that.
Which was great for me because, as I say, I struggle with that initial seed of inspiration. So it was nice to have a brief that I could run with. Yeah.
So the first track, Prologue. You know, I've always been fascinated by Hollywood. One of my earliest memories is going to the cinema with my dad to watch Superman 2. But then, you know, films like Close Encounters, The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and all the sequels. I'm a little bit too young to catch, the first Star Wars film that came out. So it was the very early 80s.
Yeah.
so when I reflect on that, it's not only Steven Spielberg and George Lucas that are like a massive influence on my life, certainly in fact even my adult life, but I'm still a fan. But obviously John Williams,
the composers as well.
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah. So
which is as much a part of the storytelling as the rest of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's why, and so I adore going to the cinema. It's such, I love it, and I love live theatre, and then I love this new phenomenon where you have this thing called live cinema, where you've got your favourite. You go to a theatre and the film's on the screen, but then there's a live orchestra performing the score.
Yeah.
So the whole prologue thing is I hope designed to get people to sit down, switch off their phone, sit with someone.
Yeah. Like that old school cinema experience.
Yeah. Get the popcorn and stand
sit
by
back and enjoy.
Yeah. And I think that's why I wanted that, because that piece is only like a minute, right?
Yeah.
And coincidentally, even that was remastered yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Like we worked
issues.
Yeah, we worked so hard on that piece, but I wanted it to be larger than life. I wanted it to actually be verging on ridiculous.
It has that cinematic feel.
Yeah.
It has that effect that you're sat in a busy cinema, waiting for the film to start.
Yeah.
And it is an orchestral piece.
Yeah, and there's an old and new element with that. You're absolutely right. It is everything that you've said, but it also hints at theatre as well.
Yes, true.
Because it's kind of split into two, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And again, actually, it's another Spielberg, John Williams connection. There's a lovely scene in many scenes in Hook, where Julia Roberts' character Tinkerbell whispers into Peter Pan's ears, whispers things, and I think we've caught a little bit of
that with the voices.
A little bit of that magic.
Do you want to talk about that? How you got people to react?
So that includes you, doesn't it? Jack, Alex, and then Anya, who works with us.
Your two sons, right?
Yeah, both the boys are on there, Anya as well is a big fan of cinematic music, and what we did separately with all of you was just listen to this, please. I'm going to switch the microphone on. Mm-hmm. Just listen to this and just react. Please don't be afraid of the microphone, but just react.
Exactly.
And then,
so what you're hearing on that is the genuine reaction to the first listen of early version of Prologue.
Yeah, and the hope within that then is that what we're trying to convey, I hope, is the magic of cinema.
Yeah, because as it came together, it had that feel of being sat in a crowded theatre.
Yeah, but the sense of wonder.
Absolutely.
And I'm really happy with it.
Now for that triangle, we worked hard on the triangle.
I worked hard on playing the triangle at the end. Yeah. There's a friend of mine, Bruce Parry. He's a brilliant percussionist, but he's got 1,000,001 jokes about triangle players and all the rest of it. But when I was trying to play that triangle, I was like, this is really hard. Yeah. But anyway, there we are. But it's all in there. So that's track one. Track two.
Carnival de Mundo.
Yeah. So, as the title might suggest, this is definitely world music. It's a fusion of Brazilian rhythms and Middle Eastern and Indian voices and instruments.
Now, I believe this was one of your earlier creations. I believe that you had this on the go before we had Ableton.
Yeah, because I was... I needed a couple of really big drum tracks on this album. I think there's 3 really big drum tracks on this album where I'm almost reminding myself that I can play a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't mean play to a high level, I just mean I need to play the drums.
Yeah.
So there's these massive Brazilian ensembles in Carnival de Mundo that again, some of it is triggered and some of it's live on the kit.
What was it that we used for the early triggers? Was it Elastic?
Yeah. So a plug-in there, isn't it? And that was enabled us to give us access to Brazilian instruments that not only that we couldn't get hold of, but that we couldn't have recorded well enough.
Exactly that.
And we can. I mean, we might as well talk about that now. Actually, there's a lot of sound library stuff on this album because of the East-West and Elastic stuff. Now, of course, if I had an infinite budget, I would have got the full orchestra.
We would have gone to the studio and done it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, and we'd have got full orchestras in, or samba schools in, and we'd have done the whole thing. So this isn't in no way saying that you don't need that. You do need that, but until I'm in a position where I can afford that, this is the best we could do.
Exactly. And it's amazing that we can get so close to that and such high quality with these plugins.
Yeah, amazing. I mean,
the fact that we have access to that in our bedrooms is mind blowing.
Yeah, and then when you couple that with a bit with creativity and a bit of knowledge,
it goes a long way.
So yeah, the Carnival del Mundo track is. I remember you saying when you were mastering it, we were in the studio listening, and you were saying to me, "Is that a bit too hot?" And I'm like, "No. This thing is like nightclub
energetic.
Yeah,
it's a dance piece.
It's a dance piece. It's meant to be hypnotic.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I can, if you think about those hot climates of like, Rio or maybe Mumbai or Calcutta or somewhere like that.
High energy,
lots of people, high energy,
very dense. The very thick bass, heavily compressed bottom end to that track.
Yeah, but also a relentless pace of life.
Yeah, makes you want to keep moving as you listen to it.
Yeah. And I hope that if people listen to it, that they either get up and dance to it or close their eyes and just try and imagine.
Move your body.
Yeah, move your body. But if you can't move your body, then try and imagine those cities. Try and imagine being there. And the vision I've got is of these young people dancing in a hypnotized state. Where they're just
almost in a trance.
Yeah, almost in a trance, and that's why it's got this monotonous drone sounds all the way through it.
And again, it was East-West sounds that took that to the next level.
Yeah.
That's where you brought in the other world instruments.
That's right.
That really took the track to another level.
Yeah. And then back with the Ableton stuff, when we got into mixing it. Like the stereo field on this is really wide, isn't it?
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because again, if you're listening to it with headphones, we want it swirling around your head.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to it in the middle of a nightclub somewhere,
we're trying to create the feel of a big space.
Yeah. So I think we did it.
Yeah.
So next track,
Pickle Funk.
Cop
Show Funk.
Yeah. So
how did this one begin?
So so for those of you who know me will know this, but for the last 20 odd years, every year I've been going to LA to the NAMM show, and then I've been in addition to that as well. But there's a radio station out there called The Wave that I just listen to, and it kind of combats the traffic because the traffic's just
unbearable.
Yeah. And this thing's like easy breezy sort of chill out music. It goes completely against the city, but it works. And years ago, nearly 20 years ago, there was a track that was playing all the time by a band called Huge Groove. And I thought, that groove's amazing, so I borrowed it.
Right.
So I just played that, and I tried to play like an entire 3 or 4 minutes, but I realised that in this piece I was taking the best bits of what I'd done and starting to loop it and create different.
Yeah. So this was a comped performance.
Yeah, definitely. and you know it's got a really strong horn section in there.
Mm-hmm.
It is cop show funk,
Yeah.
I hope. So it's got a real strong A, a real strong B section.
Funky bass line.
Yeah.
Good driving feel to it.
A bit of a breakdown in the middle and a little bit of a drum solo.
Yeah. Which was performed on your Attic kit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it went in live, which was nice. So it is a performance.
We also enlisted the one of our guitar teachers.
Yeah, we got
Steve McCabe.
Steve McCabe, yeah. He put down
some funk guitar for us.
Yeah, and you put down,
which I later doubled and layered and try and create some stereo width and a bit more motion.
But an electrifying guitar solo as well.
Yes, I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
Because we got to a point with the track. I'd done the wah-wah guitars, you'd done the funky cop show, cliches if you like.
Yeah.
And just before your drum solo, you had this sense that it was missing something.
Yeah.
And you said it needs a Dan moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
But more is more.
Yeah. And I started off with that, trying to play quite reserved and restricted.
Yeah.
With a fairly modest tone, and it just wasn't quite working for me. So I ended up cranking that amp, and it's a bit of a heavy solo. It's a bit of a rock and roll tone.
Yeah.
But it worked for the track. It serves the song.
But actually, I think it helps bring the piece to life.
Yeah.
Because even though that it's built from me comping and like creating loops, I am playing it. There is a live feel from the ground up.
Yeah.
But when you put your guitar in there, Steve put his guitar in there as well,
it adds that band element, doesn't it?
Yeah. Which is in complete contrast to Carnival de Mundo, which is designed for DJs to be able to pull apart and remix and so it
gave it that organic element that it was maybe missing.
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely a 70s cop show funk live band thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which pushes us into a track called Cruising.
With a Z.
With a Z. And again,
this was an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because you were stuck with it, if you remember.
Yeah.
You had a loop that didn't seem to go anywhere. It just wanted to keep going and keep going and keep going.
Yeah.
And for weeks you're going, damn, I don't know what to do with it.
No, exactly.
And I think I recommended that you listen to some Michael Jackson pop songs.
Yeah. That just opened the whole thing, because then there's let's call it the verse section. It's a much narrower field. And then in the chorus, when we played the head, we opened the thing right till expands.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson for me in itself. That was.
In this case, less was more.
Yeah. Because the groove's real simple, but it's heavily processed.
Yes.
And then a lot of the motifs are layered and layered and layered on different instruments, aren't they?
So you can take a lot out, and there's still a good feel there.
Yeah.
There's still enough music there.
Yeah.
And that really made the track evolve. Mm-hmm. That's when we brought in AI.
Yeah, because fascinated by, if you think about what we said at the top of this, where I'm fascinated by Hollywood and LA and all the rest of it, it's one of the many reasons I like to go back there a lot. But for those of you that have been there or lived there, you'll know that the traffic is people there don't measure distance by miles, they measure it by time.
Right.
So
that congested.
Yeah, so I live 2 hours away.
Yeah.
Not 10
miles.
Or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So you're in the car a lot. So I wanted to give the sensation that somebody's turning the knob of an analog radio.
That's it.
You know, and then hitting on...
Tuning into the station.
Hitting on to, you know, whether it's traffic reports or weather reports or whatever. But that kind of links like pickle and cruising together. Yeah.
What did we end up in the end? What was it that we had for the first advert? Do you remember?
So
was
we
it
have
a traffic report or a weather report.
We have a weather report. So we start off in the day. Mm-hmm. And you know, cruising is a journey. Like you know, it's in the title. That like, and what I'm trying to convey in this track is, you get in the car, and you just go. Mm-hmm. So if you start off early on and you're in the daylight and you've got your weather report, and then the second time round you've got your traffic report, because it's the end of the day, it's getting heavier. Yeah. That's the journey that we. And then right at the end, I remember saying to you, "Oh, where's the Lee Rittenhour guitar that I asked for?" And you were like, "Dude, you didn't ask for any." Do you remember?
That was a different track.
Oh, is it?
That's Sports Car.
Oh, Sports
car. We'll get to that. Yes, I did put some Lee Rittenhour guitar on Cruising as well.
Okay, so you see, that's exactly how I got confused.
Yeah, because I think you wanted it for both tracks.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, but also
it's interesting. I improvised that little guitar part.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too sure about it. I wasn't sure if it was right for the song. But you had one listen and you said, it speaks to me.
Yeah, and it wasn't to rush things, because, we spent a year on this.
Yeah, no, we had time.
Yeah.
Could have gone back in, but there was something right about it.
Yeah. And again, that's what musicians do. Like, you have to have that balancing act. Like, if you go back to the Carnival piece, where, I would love for a DJ to, turn it into like a house thing or a trance thing or whatever. You balance that with the feeling of a live band.
Yeah.
And Cruising lives somewhere in the middle, because it's that produced kind of MJ sound.
Yeah.
But it's a radio sound.
Mm-hmm. So it still has that organic element in the middle.
Yeah.
Do we talk about that intro?
The intro, yeah. I mean, yeah. So the intro. You tell the story. It's better.
We'll own it. It's a rip-off of "You Rock My World," Michael Jackson. But I felt like the song came in too hot.
Yeah. And
it didn't need another verse.
Okay.
So we needed a way in.
Yeah.
I've been saying to you for weeks that it needed an intro.
Yeah.
And you just went, "Bob, you do it."
Yeah, and it was amazing.
Yeah, and I sat down one afternoon and chopped up different samples and experimented with different. Again, as you said earlier, because there's so much layering in that track.
Yeah,
there's so much you can take away.
Yeah.
So that's what I ended up doing, taking a lot of things away, chopping things down to single beats.
Yep.
And you'll hear it on the album.
Amazing. Yeah. I was so excited when I heard that, genuinely excited. So I hope
our listeners
I hope they share
a similar experience.
Yeah. So the next track is called Our Man in Macau. And there's 4 movements in this.
Yeah. I'd say this was the most ambitious piece of the album.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And heavily influenced by Hans Zimmer, who I'm a massive fan of. I've seen him live many, many times. And I just, sometimes I have to pull myself out of this kind of analytical state where I'm watching the full orchestra and I'm like, oh, that's how it's been composed.
Yeah.
It's almost a class watching. It's a master class watching it. But then I have to sort of snap out of that and just be entertained.
Just experience it.
Yeah. So this is a spy thriller, and it starts off with the mission.
Yeah.
And the mission, it's a
very
huge,
heavy drums.
Very heavy.
Was that played on your kit as well?
Yeah. So that's all live. Well, there's a mixture, isn't there, with it, like a couple of loops from East West, and then me pounding
then you
on top.
The kit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not like it's full on. It's a high dynamic, high energy. I'm just,
a very heavy mix. This
very
track.
heavy.
I think we ended up with 70 plus stems.
Yeah, and there's I think 105.
105 wow.
stems on this track. Yeah,
which isn't counting in Opus. You open up one of those tracks. Sometimes there's sometimes 10 tracks under there. So we're 100 plus. Crazy.
So, and there's a male and female choir, which is quite dark, quite menacing.
Yeah. Comes in with a sort of crescendo.
Yeah, and very, very syncopated rhythms that are working against the rhythm that I'm playing on the drums. But I played the choir on my kit.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
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 But that was by far the most challenging to mix.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 separate acts that I had to get cohesive and to talk to one another and tell the same story.
Yeah.
And that probably took me a month of solid mixing.
Yeah. Yeah, because obviously it then goes into the second section, which is, which I call like the arrival, where you have to imagine that you're arriving in Macau and it's just this larger than life city. And
the instrumentation really expands.
Yeah, and we use the gongs and things like that to really the nice thing about a gong, when you can either strike it or you can roll it. And when you roll the gong, and it just becomes this field of, this white noise. That gives the sense of the size of the building.
Yeah.
And that little section there, Lee Wraith wrote that section.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And the drums expand again towards the end of that, create more energy. What was the drum sound that we used in the end?
So there's it's all part of the orchestral suite, but it's wood slapping together.
Right.
So it's like a slapstick, rather than a drum.
Yeah.
But it gives it a huge backbeat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then there's the melancholic bit, the sense of loss.
Yeah.
So we go to the relative minor.
Lovely quiet piano part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice single violin comes in over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the huge timp roll. It's really short, but the crescendo is really sharp. And it goes into this triumphant kind of, sense of triumph over adversity.
Yeah.
That's the 4th movement.
Yeah. Victorious sound.
Yeah, and even operatic vocal lines and
also ethereal element to the vocals at the end, I think.
Yeah, and then a real sort of again, pushing that Hans Zimmer sort of signature sound. It's like massive, like James Bond kind of horn section at the end.
Yeah.
Which so you've got all the high register instruments playing, coupled with these really low orchestral bass drums.
Really thick mix. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
In the low end, and there's even very thin stringed instruments up at the top in the treble register.
Yeah.
The act before is fairly sparse.
Yeah.
And then when Act 4 comes in, it's the full harmonic range.
Yeah, and again, I'm using the kit to play, because and people will disagree with this, I know that, but I'm busy, I don't have enough time to learn to play the piano.
Yeah. So
I need a way to get these ideas out of my head. So, and again, that's using the Ableton stuff. We've come up with a way that enables me to at least have beginnings of ideas.
Yeah. Through a kit, through your own instrument.
Yeah.
Which I think was really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the most cinematic pieces on the album.
Yeah, very proud of it.
The more visual.
Yeah, very proud of it.
And it was certainly the hardest for me to work with.
Yeah, well, sorry about that, yeah. So the next one is a Lee Wraith tune called Heath's Toy Box, written for his son, by Lee for his son. And this was actually the first piece of of the entire album.
Really?
Yeah. So I remember I was out with him and I said, like, because he'd stopped playing the guitar, you know.
I remember.
Yeah. He was.
It was a real shame.
He was busy and he was tired, and you know, and and I said to him, like, because I'd worked on his album before the pandemic, and I said to him, you know, please, would you write a song for me? Because again, this was in that period of time where I'm like, I'm trying to get people, or you know, like, to help me play.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And I remember speaking with his wife and saying, please ask him to do it. And she's like, well, I can't force him. And okay, no drama, fine. And then this piece turns up. So this is the way Lee writes is he says to me, there you go, and the whole thing's done.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
This was one of the easiest to mix.
Yeah.
I think it took me an afternoon.
Yeah.
Because Lee had pretty much mixed it himself. It was almost ready to go. And
it's a complete live performance from me on the drums. Yeah. Again, to give it that kind of just that sense of movement.
Again, on the Attic kit.
Yeah. Then we move on to track 7.
My song.
Yeah. Vicom Deus. So this is a complete tip of the hat to Steve Vai.
Steve Vai, yeah.
Yeah. The 7th track.
7th song.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Steve Vai would always write a ballad as his 7th track on the album. And this was very much in the same sort of vein. So this was our tip of the hat to Mr. Vai.
Yeah.
And for me, this was an exercise in overcoming imposter syndrome.
Yeah, because it was all on you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, to take the head, the melody, and I remember you were struggling to let it go.
Yes. Yeah.
And we had a listening session. I was like, you've done
it's
it.
There. Yeah. It was a very daunting thing for me because obviously I was writing a song for you. I wanted to do you proud.
Yeah.
But also because I hold Steve Vai in such high regard. It's like, if I'm going to do a pastiche of this guy, it has to be right.
Yeah.
And the error that I was making was trying to overcomplicate it technically, because I've always struggled to learn his music. So therefore I felt like what I play needs to be difficult for me.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what served the song.
No, it's strong melody, tone, and the message.
Yes, yeah.
And I think we did it.
I think we did.
I think
when we had a listening session together and seeing your reaction, that's when I knew I had it.
Yeah.
Because I'd spent too much time with it. It's a mistake that I often make, is I'll over-listen to something that I've produced to the point where I can't hear it anymore.
And I don't think you're alone in that. Like, I think it serves us well, but it's a poison chalice.
Yeah. And that's what's been good about our collaboration, because there's been times when you've experienced a similar thing with your songs. You've asked me, is this going on too long? Is that boring?
Yeah.
And it's, no, you've just spent too much time with it.
Yeah.
It's listener's fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really
I've learned a lot about that working with you through this project, that
just do it.
Just do it and let it go. Yeah.
Well, we definitely did it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's a really good track. Daydream, the next track. Again, another Lee Wraith composition. Yeah. Now, Lee loves storm chasing. He just loves to do it. He absolutely loves a big sky.
Right.
So Daydream. And I think, again, another live performance on the drums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, with the similar...
did we mention it was live drums on Vicom Deus as well?
Yeah. Again, it gives it that sense of that movement.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
I think all three of those, Heath's Toy Box, Vicom Deus and Daydream, are all on the same kit from you.
Yeah.
Gave it a nice bit of synergy, because they were the sort of instrumental guitar, Steve Vai-esque pieces.
Yeah.
And had that big rock kit with that big snare that took us a while to get right, but we got there.
Yeah. I remember. We I wasn't happy with the snare, and I hadn't realised that it was the mic on the underside of the snare that was just too hot.
Yeah. We were hearing too much rattle, weren't we?
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it, the beads underneath.
Literally the snare on the instrument. So instead of the batter head, which is the head on the top that you hit, we were hearing the resonant side of it underneath.
All that fizzy treble, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I kept thinking that can't be right. Like, that's, so it was only in the mixing of that we got the sound. But again, Lee sends these things through, and they just go, there you go. And it's like, bloody hell,
There's not much to do. No.
It was excellent.
Some extra compression and some sends, and it was job done.
Yeah. So, Girl in a Sports Car is, again, it's a tip of the hat to a song by the same title that came out in the 70s, I think it's the 70s. And it's about a girl in a sports car. But it's got this blend of this hypnotic bossa nova with a live kind of club kit part.
Yeah.
So it straddles the line of being like a dance track versus a kind of jam.
Yes. And we took a different approach on this in regards to recording.
Yeah. So we put it on an acoustic kit and mic'd it up.
Rather than triggers.
Yeah, rather than triggers.
Do you want to talk about that bit of equipment that we used?
Yeah, so we used a Yamaha EAD10. And then what we did, we were in the mixing process. Some of it was there's a function where you can change audio into MIDI. So we were able to just sort of double up the bass drum notes, and
we actually scrapped that in the end.
Oh, did you?
What's interesting about this one is there were no MIDI triggers at all.
Interesting.
100% the live kit.
Oh, well, there you go.
Recorded live.
There you go.
Microphones and everything.
Well, then I'm super impressed with it.
Yeah. Because I was trying to go down that road, and it ended up sounding too polished. It lost that raw feel.
Yeah, and that's what we were after, because it wanted that sense of, this is happening now.
Yeah.
And then there's two drum solos in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I played the first one, and then my son Jack played the second one.
He did a great job.
He did.
Out of his comfort zone, but he nailed it.
Yeah, the punk rocker that he is.
Yeah.
he sit down there and play some bossa, and he did really well.
And I learned something about bossa as well, because I kept trying to bring the snare up.
Oh yeah,
and you had to explain to me that that's not how a bossa nova sounds, that the snare's in the background, right?
On this particular one, yeah. because it's a kind of it's like a swing rhythm. Like I'm trying to have a really light comping snare drum.
Yeah. Rather than like a backbeat.
Exactly.
So I kept trying to make it like a backbeat.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's meant to be more like, literally the stick height is really low, so it's a low sort of shaker cabassa kind of.
Yeah.
So the snare drum's not meant to be louder than that, really.
It's really about the cymbals and the kick, that track.
Yeah. And when we burst through into the solos, then you can really hear the kit.
Yeah.
But in terms of the equipment that we used, amazing for what it is.
Yeah.
But again, it's meant to sound like you're in a club.
Yeah.
Like it
has that live feel to it.
Yeah.
And this is the one where I sent you the mix, and you went, Dan, where's the guitar solo?
Yeah.
And I said, what guitar solo?
And then I went back through the message and went, yeah. So that one is on me. Yeah. Sorry about that.
But we fixed it.
Yeah, we fixed it. You fixed it real quick.
I had an afternoon free, and I picked up my guitar, improvised for 20 minutes or so, and
there it is.
And there it is.
Again, another one I'm really proud of.
Had to go back to some university chops for that one.
Yeah. The next track, very emotive. Played this to a couple of friends, and one of them cried. Again, if you go back to Man in Macau, I was playing Lee some ideas, and he said, just write a blues in F.
Yeah.
And I wrote down blues in F, and then forgot about it. And then when you come back round to home, it's that.
It's that 145 in F.
Yeah. And again, it's no spoilers, but right from the beginning, it sets, I think, a very visual picture.
Yeah.
And heavily influenced by Pink Floyd. And all of our favourite guitarists, whether it's David Gilmour or Brian May or Jeff Beck, and this is just real raw blues.
Yeah.
With a gospel choir.
Also with a live kit.
With a live kit.
The same way that we did it on Girl in a Sports Car.
Exactly. So same session as well, same day.
Yeah, same day.
Yeah.
Only difference with this one is there is a MIDI trigger doubling up the snare.
Yeah. Because we
wanted a big gospel snare.
Yeah, and also there's a little tip of the cap there, isn't there, to Passion and Warfare?
Yes.
Steve Vai, a little bit of liberty at the end.
Absolutely.
Only a little bit. I'm not professing, but the snare drum really it is almost a bit like a cannon as well.
Yeah.
It's a huge church hall.
Exactly that
thing.
Yeah. It's like a live gospel band kind of feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, using the East-West software, we're actually able to get the choir to sing notes as well. Words.
Words, yeah.
Yeah.
So we won't give it away.
No,
we won't give it away.
But that was amazing.
And I remember the early demo of that. I suggested to you that we change the harmony.
Yeah.
Because it would just go 1-4-5.
Yeah.
And I felt like it needed a moment of tension somewhere in the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I put in some dominant and diminished chords just for a brief moment. And you weren't sure about it at first, were you?
Well, no, because I've got no context.
Yeah. I think I just sent you the piano part and you were, what's this little jingle he's written?
No, exactly, yeah.
But then when you hear it in the track,
brilliant,
with the guitar, it just adds that moment of tension.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was going to expand on that. I was going to have that throughout the second half, but it ends up just being a moment in the first heavy guitar solo, just to bring it all in. And then it goes back to your standard blues to take you home.
Yeah. Yeah, big piece. Not the biggest one, though.
No. And the guitars were interesting on that. I play guitar on this one. And I was trying to use the same equipment that I'd used for the rest of the album, and something just wasn't working. It was too modern, it was too compressed.
Yeah.
So I went out and got my old vintage amp out of the attic, changed the valves, cranked it up.
Yeah.
And it just sort of wrote itself from there once I had that old school Gilmour, Jeff Beck kind of tone.
Yeah.
That sort of made the song.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm really happy with that. And then the last one, Queen of Heaven. Again,
another ambitious track.
Another tip of the Hans Zimmer, unapologetic. I'm a massive fan, and I wanted this one, to be very well, to just keep growing in intensity.
Yeah. The layers just keep building and building and building and building.
Yeah. And then there's moments where it all drops away, and there's the ethereal female voice, and then it's all back in again.
AI again.
Yeah.
Shout out to our good friend Aaron Toklev for doing the AI for us.
We've got. Yeah, I mean, and again, that helps tell the story.
Yeah,
massively. And I can remember just keep building these orchestral parts, and even down to like military marching drums, and to give it a sense of momentum
and fidelity.
Yeah.
Towards that climax at the end.
Yeah, massive climax at the end, with the heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because the whole piece is suggestive of like building up momentum, speed, energy.
Yeah. This was actually the first track on the album that I mixed and mastered.
And it was the first one I'd written with East West.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But it's the last one on the album.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've already started producing Volume 2, right? So
the story doesn't end.
The story doesn't. No, it doesn't end there. Definitely not.
No spoilers, but there's more to come.
There's a lot more to come. And you know, on that second album, you know, I'd like, you know, I'd love more friends to play on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Simon, brilliant pianist and bassist. Steve, you know, Laura. I remember asking Laura to do because she's a trained opera singer. People don't know that, but ask her to do the operatic part on Man and Macau, and she was like, yeah, of course I will. But we're all busy.
Yeah.
So if we can actually pin her down on this next one and say, please, you know, so more people.
Yeah. There's a lot of talent here at MLC.
Yeah. So we've actually all the demos for the second album are written. We're in the studio in 2 weeks.
That's right.
You know, but this whole project has given me that sense of feeling like a musician that had gone.
Yeah, same for me.
You know, and with that actually. And it was again just an off the cuff remark, but Bopology as well.
Mm-hmm.
Your album,
yeah.
You know, Dan's got a whole ton of music that I've not heard, but that. I mean, you're talking about it in Vicom Deus, where you're like it's not good enough. I'm not good enough.
Yeah, exactly
well, actually, we need to.
And what I've learned from this project is to let those feelings go.
Yeah.
And just let it be what it is.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
Yeah. I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I've learned a hell of a lot. And when I listen to it, I'm like, did we do that?
Yeah.
You know,
and it's given me so much confidence moving forward. So I feel like we have a formula now for Anthology 2.
Yeah.
And it's definitely given me the confidence to create my own album.
Yeah.
Which I've been putting off for about a decade.
Yeah. So I hope everyone, whoever listens to it, enjoys it. It's going to be available on all the streaming platforms. There is going to be a CD of it because not everyone, believe it or not, streams, and some people like to own it. There's also a deluxe version which comes with a photo book, and the reason for the photo book is when I was a kid buying vinyl, that was a really important experience.
Yeah. It was the same for me. It was on CDs, but it was still such an important part of the musical experience was opening your CD, taking the sleeve out and looking through the artwork and reading the lyrics. Yeah. It was part of the listening experience.
But coupled with my age, you know, at the time we're recording this podcast, I'm 50. As a kid, you couldn't rewatch your favourite film whenever you wanted to. Mm-hmm. So it was usually, you know, Easter or Christmas, right? Yeah. So what you'd do is you'd look at the artwork of the album, especially if it was a motion picture soundtrack, and you'd try and, you'd listen to the music and you'd try and
relive it.
You try and you know, relive the film in your head.
Yeah.
And that sparks a lot of creativity.
I remember doing exactly that with the soundtrack to Star Wars Phantom Menace when I was a kid.
There you go.
So I didn't have it on VHS or DVD at the time.
And you can hear
my dad had got me the CD.
Yeah.
So I had headphones in
but you can hear the Phantom Menace inspiration in Prologue.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all to go at, but all of the backstories, every single track on this album, there is a backstory, whether it's a character or a place or a time. And it's all in
that book brings that to life.
Yeah, so you've got the written word about each track, and then you've got artwork about, and then you've got photos of you and I in the studio and doing it and all that. So I hope that enhances the experience. I hope that people will listen to this with headphones. I hope that they turn it up. I hope that they put it through stereo speakers and not just through their smart speakers, you know, this is
to be experienced.
So with that, thanks Dan, thank you very much.
Lovely talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you to our listeners.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Anthology Volume I, Paul Hose, featuring lots of people, but certainly featuring Dan Dodson, not only from mixing and mastering and producing, but also helping with composition and lots of guitar performance. Available wherever you stream your music, but if you go to my website paulhose.com and follow the link, then you can buy the physical copies as well. So thanks for listening.